All right, my people, my beautiful and handsome viewers, welcome to my page, Timo Starboy Reality Talk TV. Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and for those people who are already sleeping, good night. I greet you at your location time. So you are welcome to the platform, Timo Starboy. We got new update. We got new update on our sitting president Bola Tinubu saga. So there is a our pa Bode George speaking on the issue that is on the ground about the certificate, Chicago school certificate that it was trending on the social media, about the fraudulent, the concocted, I don't know. I cannot say much. Don't let me waste your time. So let me play the video and let's hear from the Body Judge. So this is the video.
Let Bola bring out the certificate of his primary school, his secondary school, and the university he attended.
Oh, breeze don't blow, Fawonya don't open. Oh yeah, bring out all the certificate. Oh, yes, my people, you need to watch this video again. Oh, now another shocking video. Now be this one, and make una no forget to share this video.
I can bet
share our video.
Any amount of money. Let Bola bring out the certificate of his primary school, his secondary school, and the
Chicago
university he attended.
In Chicago.
We want to see them. Because I remember in 1998,
this is controversial.
1999, when we had the elections. Afikuyomi was the one, when they raised and pulled his papers that he filled to INEC, they now asked him to produce all those papers. He said he went to Government College Ibadan.
You can hear that.
And the children home school.
Can you hear that, guys?
We went there, we checked. What year?
Everything
Where's
is
your certificate? Nothing. When they were going to hoist him, he quickly said that it wasn't him that signed it. It was Afikuyomi that filled it.
What a ridiculous.
So look, your certificate. If you have
what a ridiculous story.
You went to a particular school, you must have friends. Who?
What a ridiculous story. Somebody will sign your school certificate for you. That maybe you are imprecise, or I don't know whether your brain is lost. You are lost memory. How could somebody sign this thing for you in Chicago, and in your secondary school? Are you a fool? You are not a fool, right? So you are good in the mathematics. You are a brilliant. You are a what can I say? Genius, as they call you. So it turned to show your own this thing at the INEC certificate this thing registers. So you are telling all sort of story. You think we are a fool? Do you think we are a fool like you? Bola Tinubu, thank you, my brother. Thank you. Please, as usual, please like and share. So this is so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Let's continue watching the video. Let's continue here the judge. Body judge.
Who? Because you won't be the only one in that college. Let's see them. I am shocked that Ogunlewe will be saying this in public. He knows for real that this fellow doesn't have all these certificates, and I'm not hiding it.
He doesn't have none.
Let him bring them out. Look, the days of lying and telling a load of bull is over.
Exactly.
Completely over.
Over.
Whatever you have, tell us. If you are from whatever, tell us. Why are you afraid? You must be afraid because you know that people will find out a lot of things that are illegal.
Yeah.
That's why.
That's a good
educated is the best educated.
But the real thing that I think always skips is the integrity failure. That's the critical thing. Look, people were not going to break their head. People were not going to go to court. Have you seen? Look at the electoral cases. Look at the cases in court. None of them is about voting started 30 minutes after schedule. Nobody really goes to court to challenge, logistic failures. When you go to court is
story every day. Yeah, my brother. That is it.
80 for B.
The story will never finish.
Change it and put. That's the way they're going to hear.
Story will never.
INEC is not addressing integrity.
The story will never finish in Nigeria.
The act says you have the power to disqualify. Why would you allow somebody who has fake certificate to process? You have all the time. You are doing consultation, meeting with your road.
They are jovious.
Why not first do that? If you look at the US, anywhere in the world, you file your intention
everywhere.
to
Yeah, you are
election.
correct.
The regulator
lies
use that
everywhere.
intention
They are all liars.
a probe. Tell the public.
Bunch of liars.
And when people say this person has no qualification or didn't do that, the regulator excludes you. Now, INEC will play dead brain, flood the whole place with people who are not qualified, fake results everywhere, fake certificate. Then after election, they start meeting with road transport workers. Look, the key missing thing in this election was failure of integrity that was either deliberate or based on ignorance.
Exactly,
In
that's the point.
In this arise, we debated it and say INEC is more of a regulator. You cannot do election where you now outsource every of this crisis to the courts.
No integrity.
You have simple things you can establish. Who is qualified to run? That's the beginning. Who has the papers to run? Who has made wrong entry?
Exactly.
Who has not filed his papers within the time allowed? Those things are strict liability. You exclude them, election continues. So INEC bungles everything deliberately and then start a showboating. Meet with road transport workers, meet with garage sellers, meet with newspaper printers. That's not the job. The real thing that is at stake in this election is integrity.
Integrity.
And integrity is critical to economic development, to democracy. You cannot surrender the regulatory power of the state in order to allow few individuals access power and achieve their political ambition. The country, at a moment like this, we need clarity. And that's why the courts now have to step in to second guess INEC, disregard INEC's error, and restate back the integrity of rules and restate.
You are right. Fake certificate. Oluwole. Now Oluwole they presented, and that thing has backfire. It's backfire on them, and they are finding somebody to blame for that thing. They are blaming Chicago University clerk that was the one doing the wrong thing. Instead of them to admit that they take that thing, maybe they issue that thing from Oluwole in Lagos, to present it on the this city form, in an INEC form, So they don't want to throw the towel. And we are telling them before they put the shame on the whole Nigeria, the whole Nigeria, they should step down. Because we don't need their faces. They are dubious, They are a bunch of dubious. Scallywags. The scallywags people. So we don't need them. We don't need them. We don't need them as our president. We don't need a crook as our president. Before they bring all the shame into the whole entire 200 million people, they should just comot their face. We don't need their face. Simple as ABC. So allow me to, let me see whether this one finished. Anyway, I want to play another one. This one is interview almost Wole Sowore and Chris Nwokobio. So let me play that one. Allow me to play that one. That one makes sense too. Very excellent. This interview, very superb interview, very excellent. I love it. So let's play that one from Arise TV. Sorry, I'm finding the video. You will hear a lot of these incompetent leaders as Tinubu and all his ministers. They are incompetent. They are just forcing themselves on us. And we say, no, we don't need all these dubious people. We don't need all this atrocity. Okay.
Oniru. Our discussion point today is leadership achievements in Africa, our people, our power, our profits, and our politics. Two special guests will be joining us soon, but for right now, let's get started. Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. Nelson Mandela, Muammar Gaddafi, Martin Luther King. The best of leaders have been historic and inspirational, imperfect visionaries, doers and achievers, positively impacting many millions of lives for generations ahead. The systems of power built yesterday form the basis of the model of leadership that will change tomorrow. The model of meritocracy, humanity, and accountability will almost always lead to sustainable development, higher standards of living, and a system of achievements. The model of kleptocracy and apathetic leadership will almost always lead to chaos, untimely death, and incompetent followership. We all think, look, act, and visualize differently, and we are all sitting on different hierarchical seats at any given point in time. But what unites us is leadership that instills peace on earth today and peace of mind for tomorrow. No human is more deserving than the other of peace, opportunities, respect, freedom, unity, and prosperity. Leadership is heartful, delicate, powerful, humane, and progressive. Leadership is passionate, results-driven, and ethical. A nation of citizens who sits up, communicate up, and achieve up will attain the changes and the progress desired. Currencies are man-made. Hardships are man-induced. Freedom is man-protected.
Yeah.
The theme at this year's G20 gathering of world leaders is One Earth, One Family, One Future. How close are we to achieving one Nigeria and eventually one Africa? Are we ready to have a permanent seat at global tables of development? More viewpoints coming up with our special guests, but for right now, let's watch this unique report on leadership.
What is leadership? They say it's the ability of an individual or group of people to influence or guide followers and members of an organization, society, or team. Leadership often is an attribute tied to a person's title, seniority, or ranking in a hierarchy. But they say, with great power comes great responsibility. As a leader is bestowed with the responsibility of guiding a group of people, organization, or nation, ensuring that your best interest is represented in all situations. While some people relish the perks of being in a leadership position, it involves a lot of work. As individuals who take up such positions, a lot of times require protection due to the nature of their jobs, which involves making policies that might not be well received by people, especially political leadership. The profits of being a good leader comes in the form of legacies the individual is remembered by, how they use their position to uplift people that look up to them. Unfortunately, in today's world, a lot of leaders put profit and power ahead of the people, betraying promises made during campaign seasons, which in return has created some sort of distrust between the leaders and their supporters. Today on Perspectives, we will be taking a look at profits of leadership, the politics involved in such positions, and how effective leadership is a benchmark for successful corporations towards productivity and efficiency.
Indeed, an interesting report on leadership. We're heading for a very quick break, but do please stay with us because we have more coming up on Perspectives.
Sorry.
Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. That was indeed a special report on leadership. Now moving on to welcoming our special guests who are joining us today in discussing leadership across the continent. First off, we have Chris Nwa-Okobia, who was a notable presidential candidate in 2011, and he is currently a member of the Obidati Presidential Campaign Council in 2023. Also joining us is Omoyele Sowore, who is founder of the African Action Congress Party and a notable presidential candidate in 2019 and most recently in 2023. Very warm welcome, Sowore and Nwa-Okobia. Nwa-Okobia is joining us from the Abuja studio, and Sowore is here with us in Lagos. Sowore, let's start with you. With a population of over 200 million citizens, expected to increase to 400 million by 2050, Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, faces very significant human development challenges, currently ranking 150 out of 157 countries in the World Bank's Human Capital Index. Where did we get it wrong and what lies ahead?
Well, thank you for bringing me. And it's also great to see Chris on the screen on the other side. I think it's very interesting that the World Bank is the one expressing to the world that we are now lacking in human capital development. But what we must understand is that Nigeria was subjected to economic policies that actually degraded its capacity to produce people with capacity. And that was through the structural adjustment programs that was imposed on the military and that was executed precisely to achieve the objective that they are now reporting on. I became an activist.
Can you tell us some of those policies?
Yes, first and foremost, in 1989, as I was arriving at the University of Lagos, the World Bank was also giving Nigeria a $120 million loan, supposedly to fix our universities. But they knew that we didn't need that loan. What we needed was a leadership that could have invested in education. But the structural adjustment program specifically targeted the number of universities. Said there were too many universities, government had no business investing in free education. But look at it, some 30-something years later, the people that were half-trained by Nigerian universities are now being brought to the UK, Europe, and America as doctors after COVID-19 hit them. So had we had that opportunity to progress when we started free education, invested in education the way we should, had we had the opportunity to have an unbroken leadership in the civilian sector, we would not have had that break that led to the destruction of that human capital development they are reporting upon. So they are guilty. The World Bank, the IMF, they are guilty of this. They know the kind of policies that they have spread over time.
But you know, leadership changes hands, so the leadership then will be different from the leadership today. Whoever put the report together will be different from who's managing all the aspects.
Because we are still dealing with structural adjustment program. The current dislocation that they imposed on Nigeria through the removal of so-called fuel subsidy, it was a World Bank and IMF prescription. And the man who read it on the day of his own inauguration probably didn't even think about the fact that the moment you have 80% of your economy in the informal sector, you just can't come up one day and destroy opportunities that people have to do business and live. Because you already know the statistics of how many Nigerians are living below $1 per day. And what is $1 today is almost 950 naira to a dollar. As of 6 months ago, the naira was stronger than it is today. It has depreciated over time. So what I'm saying is that it's not as if we should blame the World Bank and the IMF all the time for, but you would link that with the kind of leadership they also promote. I'm talking about the West on the continent of Africa, the kind of characters they impose. And I think we're going to talk about this later. You know, since independence on the continent of Africa, what it did, you know, killing the real leaders of Africa who fought for independence. Some of them were killed through coups. Some of them were killed through, you know, mysterious plane, you know, crashes. And they have now also started directly, you know, killing people. And you now have reached a point where even military rule has returned to the continent of Africa. Africa is not making progress with the return of the military to power. You now find even a new generation of young Africans who are hailing military Boy Scouts, who are taking over all these African and West African countries. That's not progress. But you cannot divorce that from the history of Africa, how Africa got to where it is, and the position of these institutions, international institutions, who keep imposing upon Africans economic policies that would not allow Africa to develop, especially their position on education, their position on public welfare, housing. You know, when I came to Lagos...
So you're saying they are currently dictating Africa's status at the moment?
Look, the most powerful person internationally in Nigeria is probably the IMF country director. You can walk into your president at any time and tell him, oh, this is not going to work. even when they say it in private and you don't listen, they call a press conference and say, we're not going to accept Nigeria's economic policy because this is not good for us. But they know what they are doing. They are preparing your country for their factories to dump whatever it is they want to dump on you. It is easier now to impose Americans' wheat on the Nigerian bread industry to make bread. But guess what? The farmers who are growing wheat in America are the most subsidized farmers in the US. So how do you compete with a farmer who is subsidized to grow wheat in America? And through the WTO, the World Trade Organization imposes that you must take a certain tonnage of wheat into your country, whether you like it or not. That will kill your own local production of wheat, which we are capable of doing. So a lot of people don't know that some of these policies are part of the reasons why they are killing us. And that is why the West don't like African leaders who are conscious, who are brilliant, who understand the mechanics of how they manipulate our economic policies to pauperize us. They like cooking up numbers. You mentioned earlier that Nigeria is the biggest economy on the continent of Africa. I don't know why
guys, you can hear what our show already is saying.
Electricity.
The potential.
It was linking up a lot of secrets.
But how we big
how the Westerners,
you can't even electrify like half of.
I hope you guys, you are listening and you are getting the point, because he's trying to link up all their secrecy that they are planning on Africa. Those white men, white supremacy. And our leader, they don't get it, They are just putting us in a jeopardy way, in the second slavery, their, so-called slavery, modern slavery, So this is what this guy is trying to, analyze and trying to give the point that we should wake up from our slumber, So they are linking their secret, all these white dude, white devils, white supremacy, white non-entity, white devils, So we don't need them. They are just part of their problem. They are the most our problem because they are doing divide and rule. And this is what caused all the problem in the first place. So let's continue listening.
City. How can it be big?
Yeah.
It's not a big economy. Nigeria is the big for nothing, what fella used to call BBC, big blind country on the continent of Africa.
With huge potential.
It has huge potential, but for you to get to that potential, you must remove the roadblocks. Leadership is a major factor in making sure that Nigeria is in charge of the destiny of Africa. The fact that we need ECOWAS to speak to Boy Scouts in Nigeria and all that shows our weakness. If Nigeria were to be the right country, in position that it ought to be on the continent of Africa, we don't need West Africa to tell our neighbors in Nigeria that they should sustain democracy.
Absolutely. Let me bring in Onwa Okobia from our Abuja studio.
Sorry, guys.
Onwa Okobia, how would you analyze Nigeria's current government and state of leadership in line with what Sora just said? What updates on the judiciary matters ongoing? And do you foresee Nigeria having a seat at global leadership gatherings and the upcoming G?
They are telling me, hey, I don't take this call. Oh my God. This call has just, hey.
TV for this incisive dialogue, if you like. Let me salute my brother there. Interestingly, we've come a long way. We were born in the same year. And our passion for a new Nigeria, a new Africa, and a new deal for our people is top-notch. But let me clearly say that as we discuss these issues, we must locate leadership in Nigeria and indeed Africa in proper perspective. Do we have leaders? And some of my friends will say, at best what we have are rulers who are egocentric, who are self-centered, who are egotistic, and to whom leadership is just about me, myself, and I.
Yes, that is it.
I think that the way forward for Africa is first to grow leaders who are nationalistic, who are Pan-African, and who, beyond populism.
As you can hear, the Professor Chris Nwanko, you know, what he was saying is that our leadership, they are self-centered. They are very self-centered, egocentric. They don't even shame. They don't have shame in their face. Whatever they do is okay with them. Even if they shit to their pants, if they toilet inside their pants, it's okay. If they are smelling around, it's okay. Anything is okay with them. They don't shame. So that is what this Chris Nwanko, I think, hold on, don't let me lose it. So Chris Nwankobia, sorry. So he's a professor. So he's trying to analyze how our leaders, they are gullible, you know, they don't have a foresight. They are ass linkers to the white men, you know. Anything the Westerners tell them to do, they are like dog and a cat, just linking their hearts all the time. They don't want to stay focused on their own. They don't want to stay focused. They don't want to take care of their own citizen or their own problem. You know, they rather to be like a servant under the white man's supremacy. So this is what they are saying, that enough is enough. So they are just linking their own secret and their foolishness, how they are doing their, you know, manipulating things, you know, and their propagandas. So we need to take this thing seriously and tackle the problem we have. So let's continue hearing from this analysis. Thank you, guys.
About
Please
their
share.
people and about
Share
our continent. We need Pan-Africanists who truly will determine the destiny and the fate of the African continent and indeed our people. Can Nigeria get into BRICS and perhaps occupy a seat at the United Nations Security Council? The answer is yes, but how? When? And how can we do that? And let me say simply that we must first of all grow leaders who are totally people-centered and people-centric. We must grow leaders who truly care about you and I, who truly care about our country, and who truly care about the masses of our people. Until that is done, you know, there's a popular cliche that we all grew up knowing, and that obtains even in the deepest and the most exclusive rooms where policies and global issues are discussed. Charity begins at home. How much charity do you have at home? Thank you for watching. Chris, my brother there noted something which is very germane. We have leaders who are able to say to the World Bank and the IMF, to this extent is yes, and to this extent is a capital no. Because every country that's come out of poverty to promise, every country that's come out of disease and despondency to greatness, every country that's come out of want to plenty, has policies that are intrinsic, traditional, and natural to it. Not policies thrown on her by the World Bank with Bretton Woods and the IMF. And for as long as our leaders have the incumbent president a few days ago saying that he's under pressure to go to war in Niger, if you emerge through a credible electoral process, you don't need pressure to ask Nigerians to do what is right. If your electoral victory, quote and unquote, were proper, trite and right, fair and just, all you need to do is hop into the Nigerian presidential aircraft and go to Niger and negotiate with the people. But because you lack the moral nexus to so do, because you lack the credibility to so do, because you lack the capacity on account of how you emerged to so do, Nigerians will look at you like I don't know how verified the statement is from Burkina Faso, that they know who actually won the last election, so you don't have the right to tell them or school the world on democracy. So I think that's where I agree with my brother and friend. African leaders...
Somebody who doesn't believe in a democracy, who doesn't believe in the rule of law, you know, and he's trying to teach people how the democracy work. Does that make sense? My people, does it make sense? You don't know about the democracy. You don't know about the law, how to abide the rule of the law. You know? So you want to teach people how to abide the rule and how to practice democracy in another country. You must be out of your sense. You know? Mr. Man, you are just a joker.
Must ensure that they emerge through honorable processes. African leaders must ensure that democracy means truly what it is.
Yeah.
A government of the people, as defined by Abraham Lincoln, for the people and by the people. And when we truly dish and deal service to the people, then we can, as it were, emerge not only as leaders of the West African sub-region, not only as leaders of the Sahel region, but leaders of Africa, because we're the most populous country in Africa. But I think that what we're doing today is a call to the conscience of our nation, a call to the conscience of the political leaders, a call to the conscience of our people, and indeed a new generation that are saying that things must be done rightly. I believe that if we have leaders that are responsible and responsive to the people, if we have leaders that are Afrocentric and African-centered, if we have leaders who are pan-African and pan-Nigerian, then sooner rather than later, the global organizations that care and that are sincere will come cutting us. But until that is done, a place in the United Nations Security Council is like a wait for Godot. Seeking for a place in the BRICS is like a wait for Godot. And I want to say very strongly as we go on with this conversation that the time has come for us to move away from populism to patriotism and nationalism. We need leaders who will care and not. Let me chisel this home. My brother talked about the fuel subsidy. All over the world, in Britain, in the United States of America, in Germany, farmers and farming is subsidized. All over the world, largely energy is subsidized. Why is the IMF and the World Bank telling us that the way out of the morass is subsidy? I think that what leaders must do in Africa and indeed this country is to curb corruption. If I tell you what corruption goes on in the oil sector, you will know that the solution to our problem is not in the removal of subsidy, but in the curbing of corruption. Trillions of dollars, trillions of naira are stolen by people who are protected by the state, are stolen by people who are protected by the PDP, the APC, and those who politic with our collective destiny. The way out of the morass is to check corruption, not increasing poverty for the masses of our people and making lives better for the rich. That's the way to go. We must be African-centric and pan-Nigerian in leadership.
We must be African-centric in Pan-African leadership. Thank you, Umar Okobia. Let's bring in Sowore for the very next question. Sowore, leadership is extremely delicate. Power in the wrong hands can kill millions. We're seeing it not just play out in Africa, but across the world. One must be genuinely passionate about the people you're leading to generate abundant profits using your power of politics. So what makes you believe today that you're an ideal candidate for president of Nigeria?
So you have to look at power from the point of view of service. And I think Chris had mentioned that we have produced over the years very egocentric leaders in this country who care more about themselves, their friends and families, and not the Nigerian people.
Egocentric.
And you must also look at those of us, particularly those of us who want to claim to be young, where we stood when it mattered most in this country. And I can't say that enough. You see, it's not always true that somebody suddenly decides when they've turned 45 years old, 50 years old, or 60, that they want to change their country. When, as a matter of fact, when your services were needed for the country, when you're in your 20s, you just didn't partake. You didn't partake in fighting for the rights of your people. You didn't partake in fighting for the rights of your mates when you're in the university. And then when it's time for compensation, or compensatory leadership, as I like to call it, you say, yes, we love this country. We want to work for the country. We want to make things work. I come from a long tradition of sacrifice. And when people want to choose their leaders, we always say that they should look for leaders who have pedigree, who have integrity, who have history. And I think I fall into all these categories. And leaders who can make sacrifices, leaders who can deny themselves of comfort when it's needed so that their own people can have comfort. Leaders who can speak to issues affecting their people, leaders who can motivate. Because sometimes when people talk about leadership, they think the moment you're a president, you should also be the accountant, you should be the doctor. No, leaders who also becomes the human resource center of the country, who can find the best hands to work with to make the country move forward at all times. That is where people like us come in. Leaders who have education, not literacy. So that you can have a good spectrum of understanding of the country that you are planning to lead. You see, I always say this, that Nigeria is not complicated as our leaders make it sound. But what is complicated is that the leaders themselves don't understand the nature of complexity. To the point that the only excuse they give you is that, oh, Nigeria is complicated. Oh, Nigeria is too difficult to handle. But you look at the size of Nigeria itself. I studied geography and planning at the University of Lagos. That was my first degree. You should ask yourself, how long does it take to fly from one part of Nigeria to the other? Maybe an hour to Maiduguri from Lagos. If you have a good aircraft, it'll take you there in an hour. But there's a president in the US, a country that has 50 states, of which one state, Alaska, is bigger than Nigeria. One state, Alaska, is bigger than Nigeria. And you can fly from the east coast of the US to the west coast, that is New York to California, for 6 hours. You are still in the air. But in this country where you can travel from one place to the other in a few hours, is considered or regarded as complex. And then you put in charge of that country, people have no understanding of how to run a country. You have a US that has maybe only 20 ministers. We have 42 here in Nigeria. The US is a country of 250 million people and an economy that is in trillions.
Wasting
they
of
have
resources.
maybe 100 and something senators.
Wasting
with an economy of a state, equivalent of a state in the US. We have 109 senators and how many
Please pick up the point.
Assembly, National Assembly members. All these guys are just wasting resources that should belong to the people.
Resources, for
and
God's
then
sake.
we have population. Population has become a blessing to countries. China is blessed with population. They are using it positively. India is blessed with population. But Nigeria has 200 million people. It is not the population that is the problem. It's the population of the thieves. That's Nigeria's problem.
Rogues.
They are not many,
Even
but they are the ones who have access to
rogues.
resources that should belong to everybody. How did we get to this conversation that I'm breaking down to you? Is the question you asked me about leadership.
They are all rogues.
Those who ran Nigeria in the 60s, after independence, they were in their 20s. But those who are running Nigeria now, you don't even know their age, which is a problem. So you have a problem of integrity. You have a problem of people with no pedigree, people who are fraudulent in nature, running the country, expecting the country, as Chris said, to make progress. When the meaning of democracy has been turned upside down. The reason why the people of Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali are making fun of us is because they know that the democracy we claim we are practicing here is not democracy. So what is the difference between a coup plotter in army uniform and a coup plotter in civilian garb?
We are practicing a crazy demo.
The moment you cannot have an organized, free and fair election with integrity, you have no moral right to discuss democracy anywhere in the world. Even if it is in Palau, one of the smallest countries in the world, they will make mockery of. That's why we're a joke on the continent of on the West African coast. You know, say Nigeria president said we should go and invade Nigeria. But had Nigeria had credibility in leadership and integrity, You don't need to go to, you'll be a moral voice.
Yeah.
You said to them, look, we are neighbors, I'm sorry, you cannot overthrow your government. Go and wait for another election. Look at them, they are saying they want 3 years. You know, I'm sure in 3 years' time, they would change either their uniform to Agbada.
Definitely.
And what I find very sad about it is that in the midst of the conversation, we are still being controlled like marionettes by the West and the East Bloc. You know, people now prefer Russia to America. That is how we got into the situation we're in the 60s. That whole East and West Bloc, dichotomy, and the use of the African continent as experimental space for whatever their own ideological things are. I don't want to be controlled by the US, but I also don't want a Putin to be my role model. Yeah.
Let me throw the same question to our guest in Abuja. Unwa Okobia, are you still with us? You ran for president in 2011, and in 2023 you supported Peter Obi. Can you tell us why you believe he's an ideal president for Nigeria?
Let me say clearly first that what obtains in our country is a quest for anybody who truly loves our country, who's patriotic, who cares about the way earth of the Nada to promise. It should be about patriotism and nationalism first. And permit me use the word, my brother will understand me when I say this, and I think that going forward, we would have and must have to all sit down together as people who bear the scars of military rule. Interestingly, he was in the university about the same time I was. We went through all kinds of terror, harassment, and we were harangued by the military. And we stood for the values that we believe in. And let me say clearly that the time has come going forward for all of us to sit down and try to not only redefine leadership in this country, but in Africa, because even except we wake up like Mo Ibrahim challenged, even except African young men and women, and permit my choice of word, I'd rather use young men and women rather than just the age grade that you call youth. People who think they're vivacious, people who think their commitment is for a new deal and a new day. The time has come for us to unite and work towards betting a new day, a new deal and a new tendency for Africa. Why did I support Peter Gregory of the, permit my choice of word again, leading candidates? He came across as the most passionate, he came across as the most determined, he came across as the most patriotic. But what is important for me here is not about the elections that are gone. What is important for me here is, and that's why I'm here passionately speaking to the young people who are listening, is about how we take back our country for good. Interestingly, that was the mantra my brother in the studio, Shore, used in his campaign. Take back our country for good. Because even except we do so, the traditional politicians will not understand the challenge of now.
Without revolution, you cannot achieve.
And I want to say clearly, without equivocation, that successive African leaders, successive leaders in this climb have been more perfidious in presenting pan-Nigerian manifestos. They haven't been sincere. It's been me, myself, and I. And as I talk to you, what is important moving forward is for us to challenge those who, either by subterfuge or electoral larceny, claim to be in power today, to think about Nigeria, and because they lack the moral rights, moral nexus, moral capacity and competency to ask the Nigerians to do right. In Nigeria, the language was grab it, steal it, run away with it. And we saw how there was violence,
that's a dubious
there
way.
was larceny,
Dubious
and there was all
tactics.
kinds of brigandage during the last
Grab
election.
it,
In Niger,
run away
there was a
anyhow.
bloodless coup. And so you ask yourself, where's the moral latitude for Nigeria to say to Nigerians, return to democracy? who indeed is actually democratic. In Nigeria, people are protesting against the way you emerge in power. In Niger, people are celebrating the overthrow of people my brother would call the Boy Scouts. Now, it's about a strong moral question. And the time has come for those who truly care, not only about our country, but about Africa, to begin to ask strong questions and passionately so. So as we dialogue leadership in Africa and in Nigeria, going forward, I would make 3 strong suggestions. Leadership at the level of the media must become essentially and strongly dispassionate, pan-Nigerian, and truly dedicated to truth. Leadership at the level of the student unions, like we did 30 years ago when my brother was in the Unilag and I was in the University of Nigeria in the Wu campus, is we traverse this country with our brother Maya Goon, our brother Nasiru Kura, and several